Welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Journey podcast with your host, Sana. Hear me out. Now, often we are told that our feelings are too much. We are overreacting, we are overthinking, or we are completely frozen, or we are very aggressive. Our emotions are symptoms of a disorder. This is not natural. But what if they are not? What if our instincts, the very sensations we feel when we are in danger, uncertain, or even just overwhelmed, are not broken signals, but God given guides meant to protect us? Now, today on this episode of the Mindful Journey, we are leaning into this idea that emotions are not enemies to silence or medicate, but sacred instincts to understand and trust. Listeners, my guest, Richard Tierney, has created a program unlike anything else, one dedicated to the 1 billion individuals worldwide diagnosed with mental disorders. It's rooted in the belief that what we call the effect, our diagnosis, often stems from a cause buried in the past, and that true healing can come when we safely release that burden back to where it begins. So, together, we'll be exploring whether 3 hours of focused healing can truly shift a lifetime of pain. So, let's step into this conversation with open minds and open hearts. So, Richard, as always, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Anna, thank you for having me back for the second time in such a short space of time. I thought you were going to take a month before you'd have to suit me again, and here you are taking me back so shortly. I'm really chuffed to be here. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for your introduction. You described it very well, I think, for your audience to understand where I'm coming from. So thank you very much for that.
Super, super, Richard. Thank you. Thank you so much for your encouraging words. And, yes, day before yesterday, we spoke about how children, their emotions, they are natural. Whether it's fight, it's flight, it's fear, it's anxiety, it's freezing. These are all natural instincts. And right now, it's kind of, they're all designated as, mental disorders. Something is wrong with my kid. And now I think it's a really great thing that we're also putting the same aspect here, but from a perspective of an adult. Now, many people, we grow up believing our feelings, they are flaws or they are signs of illness. My sensitivity, I'm oversensitive, or I am overcaring, or I overthink a lot. I cannot take jokes very well. I overreact or I react. Why do you believe emotions should instead be seen as God-given instincts?
Okay, well, I'll try to get, again, it's very like what we spoke about a couple of days ago. And we are human beings. We're made in God's image. Now, whether you're a Hindu or a Buddhist or myself a Christian, is that we are God's children. And that's something you have to come to yourself to understand that. If you can come to an understanding that there is a God, now, whatever that religion is, whether it's right or wrong, that's between you and your maker. But there is a God. He created you, and he created you in his likeness. This is what the Christian faith says, that he created you in his likeness, and he lives within you. He doesn't live up in the clouds looking down at you. He lives within you. So when we use the words I am, that's God's name. We attach to his name, I am, we create in our lives. So if I'm walking around saying, I am depressed, I am anxious, we're asking for that tenfold from God. So we have to learn to attach to his name what we want in our lives. That's the first part of it that we learn as adults. We don't really learn this as children, but as we go up in our lives, we learn how to use God language and use God properly in our lives. But when we were created with three responses. The three primary responses are fight, flight, and freeze. You can go to any psychologist or science, and they will tell you that every animal on this planet has three primary responses to danger: fight, flight, and freeze. If you believe there's no such thing as God, well, then something happened where there's a big bang and life was created, and from you came from a sheep 12 million years ago, you turned into a human being. But whether you're a sheep 12 million years ago or a human being today, in both instances you had fight, flight, and freeze. So I like to believe that they were given by God. You may want to believe that they happened by chance or whatever, but it's been proven again and again and again that every animal has fight, flight, and freeze. So it's not like by chance this happened, or it's not a real thing. It is a real state of mind. And our feelings and our emotions trigger us into responding with fight, flight, and freeze. So if you're in any danger, your body's screaming at you with anxiety or fear or sadness or whatever that feeling is, depression, and you jump into action. It's a call to action. So if you're fearful of invading Vikings, the body's screaming at you, run away, you run away. you take flight. If the body's screaming, you take up arms and defend yourself. You take up arms and you fight. If you can't run away and you can't fight, then you hide and you freeze. You hide and you go into freeze and you hide and keep very quiet and hope they won't notice you and they'll pass by and you can come out of the hiding place. Or you're spiritual and you pray to God. You go to the church and you go in there and you pray to God for deliverance. That's built into every man, woman, and child that they have primarily 3 responses. But if they know God, they have a 4th response. So it's fight, flight, and freeze, and acceptance. They're the 4 responses that if you believe in God, you've got 4. And if you don't believe in God, you've got 3. And our feelings and emotions are our call to action. Now, for me, I was a very anxious child. Out of that anxiety, that grew in me an ability to see through people's, excuse my French, their bullshit. Back in my family business back in Ireland, myself and my 2 brothers, we have a retail business and we'd interview people for a job. And I could clearly see through people's bullshit if they were like telling a story or if they weren't really real or if they were kind of faking it. My brothers couldn't spot it. My brothers would believe what the guys were saying. I'd say afterwards, no, that guy was bullshitting. And I could tell quite clearly. They came to believe, to trust Richie. He was his responses to read people was phenomenal. And that came from my anxiety. I was blessed with this ability to see through people's bullshit. So I believe my anxiety became a superpower. If I felt uncomfortable around people, if I felt there was something off about a person, I would trust that and run for the hills. Or I would say no, or I would set up a healthy boundary or scream and shout, or I'd freeze and go off and disassociate. My anxiety became my superpower. So this idea of suggesting that our feelings and emotions are mental disorders is the worst thing we can do to ourselves as human beings because they're our natural responses to danger. So, Sana, you're giving me this interview today, and maybe you're excited about this interview. And as I share, you start feeling this guy's talking crazy. This guy's really scaring me. What should I do? Well, I'll let him talk, and then I'll just delete the interview afterwards. That's you taking action. Fight. You might say, "This isn't working, Richie. Goodbye," and leave the conversation. That's flight. You trust your instincts. What I'm saying here resonates with you and makes sense, you'll keep this conversation going. You'll ask me to come back for another talk. Yeah. If I sound like I'm talking loop to loop, you trust your instincts and say, sorry, Richard, this isn't for me. You have to leave the building. Thank you very much. Goodbye. And you apologize to the audience. You trust your instincts in any situation. You trust your instincts. Now, it doesn't matter if I think I'm telling you a great message. If it doesn't sit with you, you can only trust your instincts. And we have to protect the interests of our children. We have to let our children know it's perfectly okay not to feel safe around your uncle, your aunt, your neighbor, your father's friend. If you don't feel safe around those people, you tell your mother, I don't feel safe around Uncle Brian or pretend Uncle Michael, or I don't feel safe around Auntie Joe, or I don't feel safe around Granny or Granddad. You tell your mum and dad you don't feel safe around, you don't feel safe in your school with your teacher. You tell a parent, you take action, or you run away or you hide. Eventually, if you run away and hide, your parents will notice Sana stopped going to school. Why she stopped going to school? She finds out why you stopped going to school, then they confront the teacher. So whenever you fight, flight, and freeze, it will trigger your parents into taking an action. So if you're running away or you're hiding or you're telling them what's going on, they will take an action because you're their child. They want to protect you. If we don't take an action and we allow the abuse to happen and we medicate our feelings and suppress our feelings, we are doing harm. And the whole thing about this is not to harm ourselves or another. So harming ourselves can be taking medication, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is to suppress our feelings. That's damaging our mind, heart, and soul. So as long as we don't harm ourselves or another, we can't go wrong taking one of these actions.
I mean, first of all, I really admire the fact, that you kind of reframed this negative connotation around anxiety. It's really good to know that it's such a kind of a flawed journey, building of a character, build up of a character, where anxiety is now his strength.
That's how we become whole human beings, Sana. So you start out as a small child, maybe your best coping skill is disassociate. Because you're a small child and your parents are fighting all the time, you're too small to reach the lock to open the front door to go outside. You're too small to defend yourself, but your parents are fighting. So what you do is you disassociate. You can't leave the room. You can't run away. You just shut down mentally and emotionally, and you go off to your dream world for 10 or 15 minutes while the fighting's going on around you. And then when the fighting is over, you come back into your mind and you're back in the space. But you leave that space, you go off to some fantasy world, and you feel safe there. That's perfectly acceptable for someone who cannot run away or hide. perfectly acceptable, and who cannot fight. To disassociate or to shut down mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, or to hide in the closet or hide in the wardrobe, perfectly acceptable. Hide under the bed, hide outside, hide behind the curtains. All perfectly acceptable to protect and preserve your sanity and your well-being, to go and hide. Perfectly acceptable. Now, if your therapist is someone who fights and they say, no, you can't run away and you can't hide, that's not correct. You must fight. I'm going to give you medication to stop yourself from disassociating and being anxious, so you'll just be able to fight. That may be okay for the therapist, but that's not who you are. God created you with flight or freeze for a reason. This is what makes you whole, is by trusting it. Now, as a young child, mainly it's this is, as a child grows up into maybe adolescence, maybe it's flight. But then after they build a good balance of flight and freeze, they then get to a space that maybe in school, if they're taught about God, they get into acceptance. And then from there, then they learn how to fight. And it may take them 10, 15, 18, 20 years, but they have all of their youth to understand all of their emotions. So by the time they get to be a young adult, they know all about fight, flight, freeze, and acceptance. And they're well-rounded human beings. But we're now allowing mental health professionals to go into schools and to tell children as young as 12 years, 10 years of age, that their feelings and emotions are mental disorders. And that's wrong on every single level. That's a sin against God, and it's a sin against the human race.
That definitely makes sense. I think listeners will resonate with the idea that fear, sadness, anxiety, they aren't necessarily weaknesses. They can be signals. If my, let's say, I think I can imagine myself saying this, that if my emotions are instincts, why do they sometimes paralyze me instead of protect me? And I think that's a real tension to explore.
But then that's freeze. If they paralyze you, that's God saying to you to freeze. And in that space, embrace the paralyzing. So if the fear is so much that you can't run away and you can't fight, go into your bedroom, climb into the bed, put the sheets over your head, and freeze. And just freeze. Curl up in a ball and freeze for 10 minutes. Leave your body mentally and emotionally and freeze for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, for half an hour, for an hour. And then when the danger's passed, come into yourself and kind of go, okay, I feel okay now. The danger's gone. Dad's left the room. Mammy's left the house. It's safe now to go back downstairs. That the fighting's over. It's okay to freeze. It's okay to be paralyzed. That's God telling you your best coping skill is to paralyze and disassociate. For you, it may not have been the best coping skill for everybody else. My best coping skill as a child was to disassociate. And I used it maybe 3 times in my life, but in those 3 times, it kept me safe and it kept me alive. It preserved my life. It preserved my sanity. In those 3 occasions, I can remember one instance, I pulled out the couch from the wall. I was about 25 years of age. My God, a child in an adult's body. I got down on my hands and knees, but my hands over my ears, rocking back and forward, humming to myself, and switched off from being there and went off into a fantasy space for 15 minutes until I felt safe. And then when I felt safe and I felt the danger was gone, got up off the floor, put the couch back up against the wall, sat down, and I was fine again. And that might have been okay for me on my own, but I couldn't be doing that in public, because people would say, he's crazy. But in a safe place where there's no one else around to judge me or ridicule me, I did that and it was safe. And it kept me safe. Now, I didn't do it in public, and I learned other skills. So in future, I'd run away, because if someone saw me doing that in public, they'd say, lock him up, he's crazy. So for self-preservation, I had to learn how to flight. I had to learn how to accept, and I had to learn how to fight. But there were instances in my life when I disassociated, and it was safe for me to do so. And it's only about self-preservation for me. It's not about you telling me, I don't agree with you. I'm not interested in you telling me would you agree or disagree, Sana? I'm doing the best for me with what I know. And you do the best for you, what you know. Our culture does that. Our conditioning does that. So you're from India and I'm from Ireland. We have different ways of coping with stuff. We have different places we go to. I think in India, you're very much family oriented. And we used to be in Ireland many years ago. We're not so much anymore. So now there's no one really family to run to, because everyone's spread out all over the place, that you kind of run away to be on your own. But for you could run maybe to your grandmother's arms or your grandfather's arm, or the family would gather around you if you were in danger, and they would protect you, because you're very family orientated. So that would be a very safe place to go to disassociate or to flight to. Whereas for me, my family are spread all over the world now, and there's not the same thing today that there was when I was a child. When I was a child, people were within reach. Now everyone's disappeared and gone their own way. I'm in Thailand. My family are in Ireland. I have a sister in England. I've got my brother's down south in Ireland. My older brother and my oldest sister are up in the city, the main city up in Dublin. We're all around the place. We're all far away from each other. We're not able to reach out anymore and support one another. And that's happened with every family. Yeah, India is very family oriented, which is a really great thing. And we need to start bringing the family nucleus back into it and protect the idea of family and protect the idea of children and help parents to nurture children.
True. And I also, I would like to add into this, because in India, although, it's kind of, very culturally and emotionally embedded within you that, family comes first, which is actually a blessing. But, as we are, shifting towards the modern times, people are more individual towards, they believe that, they also need to have a separate identity of theirs. And this is, I'm, talking especially in perspective of grown-ups, adults. I think there's a good side. And then there's also a kind of, bad side to it because sometimes, people would judge you that if you are a grown up and you are going back to your family, that means you haven't achieved anything on your own. You have to seek help of your family or you cannot survive alone. But, we are seeing loneliness, it's becoming a growing pandemic. And I think definitely, uh, this definitely needs to be talked more and more about.
Yeah, but also people who say that to you, they miss the family. They're putting their stuff upon you. So if you're very close to your family, they're jealous of the fact that you're close to your family because they're not. So they'll say, you can't achieve anything. You can't stand your own 2 feet because you're running back to your family. In all honesty, they wish they were in your shoes. They wish they had the support that you have from your family. Most people, when they say something, the wonderful thing about when you point one finger forward, there's 3 fingers pointing back.
Yeah.
And it's very, very true. It sounds really kind of casual au fait, but the truth is, if I'm pointing a finger at you and saying, Anna, you're a big girl, you should be an adult, but you're keep going back to your family, I'm talking about I don't have family. And I'm jealous of you having family, and I want you to be suffering like I am. So I'm trying to get you to suffer with me. So I feel okay about not having family by saying, don't go back to your family, stay here and suffer with me, So if you have family in your life, you embrace that. You go, yeah, I'm going back to my family. I have family in my life. If you don't have family, I'm very sorry for you. But having my family in my life is the greatest superpower I have. I have that connection, So but we've been conditioned, sadly, to disconnect from the family. This whole woke movement of destroying the family nucleus, of saying men can be women and women can be men, and children can be boys and boys can be girls. It's an absolute attack on the family unit to get to where everybody is separated and everybody's isolated. And then they become conditioned on the state. And then the state becomes the family that they can depend on. And they're into medication and you name it. And on this point about the children, in this day and age, I think the mental health industry is in operation about 100 years. I think it's about 97 years exactly. In 97, they have medicated 290 million children. Health professionals could be allowed anywhere near children until they're old enough to make that decision, until they've reached adulthood. So they shouldn't be touched until they're at least 18. I think Ben Shapiro spoke about this as 25 would be a very good age. At 25, you can talk to that person then about whether they feel their feelings and emotions are mental disorders or not. And if they are, well, then we'll treat them. But they're adults making that decision, not other adults making decision for them. No, you've got anxiety disorder. That's why you're upset. We'll give you medication for that. And suddenly they've got a child trapped into a disease that's not really true for their lifetime. And they're creating a whole market of future customers that early. It's a crying shame. It's a sin against humanity and against God. These 290 million children are the future of our human race. They're meant to be our leaders. And if they're all medicated and dependent on the state, I think the future of the human race is going to be severely damaged.
And Richard, you mentioned about when you were sharing your experiences when you were 25. I mean, it's kind of how you coped up, but that was in a private space in your home. When there was no one around to judge you or call you crazy. In public, sometimes really becomes difficult to.
I've been at the airport and the same thing happened again. I felt very threatened. I won't say why. A thought came into my head. And whether it's real or imaginary, when we get a thought in our head, it's like as real as it can be. And I was in Singapore on my way back
Okay.
to Ireland from Thailand. There's a flyover and stop in Singapore.
Uh-huh.
They have a connecting flight. I'm
Uh-huh.
in Singapore and I get this terrible attack of fear and anxiety. I
Okay.
can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it nearly ruled me. And I saw this kind-looking man sitting on his own with a paper. I went over, sat beside him, and said, "I'm really in a bad state right now. I don't want you to fix or save me, but would you mind if I spoke to you and told you all my troubles for like
Uh-huh.
the next 5 or 10 minutes?" And he's at a different gate than I was, so I knew he'd be going to a different place. So he looked at me and he just nodded. I don't know if he spoke English or not, but I end up spewing all my fears and doubts and insecurities at this man for
Oh,
whatever it was,
okay.
5, 7, 10 minutes. I gave him everything. I just let it all out. And then he went, "Are you good?" I said, "I'm good." He said, "I have to get my flight." And he walked away. And I felt fantastic. I felt like I had just released this stuff and it was a stranger, probably didn't speak any English. Like, he's in Singapore. He might speak spoken English. "Oh, foreigner, how are you?"
Uh-huh.
He sat there and he listened to me talk my English. And it could have been me listening to Japanese, nodding along, kind of going, "I have no idea this fucking Japanese guy is saying to me, but I'm going to keep nodding and smiling, whatever." And then whatever, and he walks on. But I felt the relief of sharing
Wow.
this with another person. Again, it's like burying my head in the sand. I'm giving it to a complete stranger. It's taken on his flight to wherever he's going to. Maybe he's going to Australia, I don't know. But he goes on his flight. I go on my flight, and I'm relieved of that baggage for that next 8 hour flight, 10 hour flight.
Um,
So there are things we can do. So we learned then. So I learned now, disassociating behind the couch was a very good one. Now I learned finding a stranger and talking to. So my latest one now is my wife has a Chihuahua dog. He's tiny.
okay. Mm-hmm.
I bring him for walks. He's a very small dog. So we go very short walks, maybe about 150 yards for a walk from, he's very small legs. But on that 150 walks, 50 yards walk, I give him all my head stuff. I said, "Okay, Muffin." And I start talking to him like, this is what's going on in my life. And these are my fears, my worries, and my anger and frustration, blah, blah. And he's just doing his pees and poos. He'd not like listen to me, but I'm dumping this at my dog and my wife's dog. And we go down 150 yards, turn around, walk back, bring him back into the house. He goes back into his little cot. And I feel relieved that someone or something heard me.
Wow.
You start picking up little new tricks you can do. So you can use a
So,
dog, you can use a stranger at the airport. Have you ever hugged a tree, Sana?
yeah, I have. And I've actually listened to stories, people have shared trees, horses.
Yeah. I hugged the tree and talked to the tree. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. In a forest, found the tree, no one around, put my arms around the tree and started telling the tree my troubles. And then stood up, walked away. And the energy from the earth and from the tree, I felt like $1 million. And I left myself in the woods. There's so many ways we can learn how to fight, which isn't about actually having fights. We can learn
Mhm.
to fight by giving our trouble to somebody by if you're being bullied at school, but the trick to do is to scream and shout out loud anything when he comes towards you. Bullies don't like attention being drawn to them. And if you keep screaming and shouting every time he comes towards you, he won't come towards you in future. But eventually someone will come over and say, "Why are you screaming and shouting?" And you point and say, "Sana is bullying me. Billy is bullying me. Michael's bullying me." And then people know. But if you don't say anything and you keep quiet, he'll keep bullying you for the rest of your days.
Yes.
So just scream and shout. Just scream. Like it doesn't care. I'm 6'6", Sana. I'm 6'6". I'm 80 kilos. And if I'm being bullied, I'm going to scream out loud. I don't care. I don't care if the guy is smaller than me and I should be a man and fight him back. If I feel like I'm being bullied or teased, I just scream so loud. Somebody can go over. "What are you crying about?" "Billy is bullying me. He's smaller than you." "I don't care. I'm telling you, he's bullying me. And every time he's bullying, I'm going to scream." So you don't want me to scream. Tell him to fuck off. Excuse my language, but you know what I mean?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
about self-care. It's about finding some way of creating self-care for you. It may not be somebody else's self-care, but they aren't you. They can't see inside your soul. They can't see why God created you the way he created you. No one can see why God gave me freeze as my coping skill. And my brothers were fight. And my sisters were flight. No one can see why God chose to give me freeze for my coping skill. But here I am, suddenly 64 years of age later, and now I'm helping children break free of mental disorders. I'm helping adults break free of mental disorders caused by past trauma memories. I think God had a plan when he gave me disassociation and freeze as my coping skills, that he knew that 64 years into my life, I'd be changing the lives of people here with you today.
Really, it's really powerful to hear that um, this level of transformation is possible. We can um, embrace, these skills or mechanisms to cope up, even if we're adults. Richard, you have a program which suggests that 3 hours of deep guided healing can achieve what years of therapy often cannot. How would you respond to people who might find that claim difficult to believe?
I love this question because it's a very real question. We've been
Yes.
conditioned, and anyone who's suffered with a past trauma memory and been diagnosed with mental disorder are conditioned to believe that they are broken and they're broken for life and there's no solution possible. And that's the conditioning of every child, every adult who have been diagnosed with mental disorder. They are broken, that there's no hope for them. All they can ever hope to do is have medication, therapy, and that'll see out their life coping with living with the effects of that disorder. But the truth is, the disorder is a person's opinion of you. That's all it is. Doesn't matter that they have a qualification. So let's imagine I'm your therapist, Sana, and you come to me, but I've just had a fight at home with my wife, or I've had a fight with my children, or I've had a problem with the government and wages, or whatever's going on in my life. In my personal space, there's some conflict that has me not in a good headspace. And the last client I had was suffering with terrible anxiety, and I diagnosed them with anxiety disorder. And then you come into my group and you say, Doctor, I'm having terrible anxiety. And I straight away diagnose you with anxiety disorder because you're showing the same symptoms as the previous client. And I tell you, you have an anxiety disorder. I put you on medication and I send you away. That's my opinion. It may not be true. It may not be a healthy opinion. But if you accept that as your truth, you're screwed. That's the honest to God truth about this. You see, it's all about cause and effect. And science tells us it's all about cause and effect. So if you break your leg, let's imagine you break your leg, okay, and you go to a doctor. The doctor doesn't put your leg in a cast and doesn't put your leg up, and he just gives you medication. Say, okay, here's medication for the pain. You can go back out and start walking on it. Doesn't treat the broken leg, doesn't put it in a cast or anything, just gives you medication. Say, okay, here you are. That'll lessen the pain. Off you go back to your life. And you go back walking on your broken leg. Every time there's pain, you take medication so you won't feel the pain, but you're walking on a broken leg. What's going to happen? It's going to get worse. But if you go to a doctor and he says to you, okay, now you got a broken leg, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to put your leg in a cast. I'm going to put you on a Zimmer frame. I'm going to ask you to lay up for about 2 months of no walking. And then after that, we're going to do very light walking to get your leg back together. Okay. I can give you some medication for the pain, but it's only in extreme cases. If it's really painful, you can take a medication, but to keep your weight off the leg. And then you follow the instructions. You get your leg in a cast, you're brought home, you stay at home for 2 months, and then eventually you're working with either a Zimmer frame or a cane. And eventually, after about 8 months, they kind of go, okay, your leg is really healed now. We're going to take the cast off, They give you some rehabilitation exercises. And suddenly you're walking and everything's fine again. And you have your life because you've dealt with the cause. You're not stuck in the pain of the effect. So if you go to a therapist and you're suffering with a hole in your soul from a past trauma memory, most people suffer with a sense of hopelessness. They don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. And a kind of sense of inferiority because of what happened in the past. They're no longer whole human beings. There's something broken about them. They're not really whole. So they feel a sense of inferiority and hopelessness. And this inferiority and hopelessness can lead to bouts of depression, anxiety, bipolar, throwing tantrums, sadness and grief, stress, you name it. And if you go to your therapist, if you go to, again, you go to a dentist with a sore tooth, and the day you go and see him, your tooth isn't sore, and you say to him, I had a sore tooth, but it's okay now, I'll go home. You'd be crazy if you went to your doctor with a sore back, and the day you went to see him, your back's fine, you're going to go, my back's fine, I'm okay, doctor, and go home. You'd be crazy. You tell him, the tooth can be really sore, the back can be very bad. And the same with your mood. When you go to a mental health professional, you tell them how bad it can be. The nightmares can be terrible. The flashbacks can be terrible. The depression can be really deep. The despair, I can get really angry. I can get really sad. I can get really despondent. And you give all this information to your therapist. And so they're going to say, you have bipolar disorder. You have depression disorder. You have anxiety disorder. You have post-traumatic stress disorder. But the truth is, you're explaining to your therapist how bad it can be, but the problem isn't the disorder. That's how it manifests in your life. The problem is what happened in the past caused hopelessness and inferiority. And that's what needs to be treated. Hope and inferiority are to do with the soul. They're food for the soul. They're not mental. So they can't be treated with a mental therapy or mental medication because it's not mental. It is a feeling, and the feeling is derived from the soul. It's food for the soul. And mental health professionals have no way of treating the soul. So they have to make it about mental disorder so they can treat it, but they're out of their depth. So you can go to a therapist. And if you're in therapy for more than a year and you've been with more than one therapist or more than one medication, you have been misdiagnosed. Because if this was a real situation and you had that mental disorder, you should be treated and healed within 1 year, if that is your true state of being. But if they're treating the effect, you will never recover. You'll have that effect for the rest of your days. And as they give you more medications, you'll start developing more systems. You'll start off with anxiety, and then they say you have anxiety and depression. Then they say, yeah, you have anxiety, depression, and dissociative disorder. And then you have anxiety, depression, disorder, and bipolar. And suddenly you've got this whole, and you kind of wonder, I came in here feeling hopeless and inferior, and now I've got all these multiple disorders, and I've got all these multiple medications and multiple therapies, and they keep switching me from therapist to therapist because no one can help me. And you're really destroying yourself because you're bought into a lie. Someone's opinion of you is not your truth. A diagnosis is someone's opinion. It's not truth. And it has to be on you, Sana, to decide this. It has to be on me to decide for me. It's not about somebody else deciding for you. If I say to you, yeah, no, Sana, you're bipolar, that's my opinion of you. You can say, Richard, I don't believe I'm bipolar. Feck off. I know I suffered hopelessness and inferiority, but I'm not bipolar. If you keep calling me bipolar, you're going to see bipolar, you know? So a person's diagnosis isn't your truth, but we've been conditioned to accept a person's diagnosis as being our truth. And then we go with that truth and we let that truth rule and define us. But it's not our truth. It's an expression of how the trauma manifests in our lives. This 3-hour practice is a case of we have to come to understand that I exist only in today. I think we had this conversation last time. So I'm Richard Tierney. I'm 64 years of age. I live in Thailand. Now, if I got a sheet of paper and wrote a history about myself, an autobiography, I would say I'm 64 years of age. I live in Thailand. I'm married to my wife. We have 2 grown adult children in university. I have a home in Thailand. I came from Ireland. Both my parents are dead. Both my grandparents are dead. And all of my aunts and uncles are dead, bar one. Of my siblings, one of my siblings died of leukemia. The family home is sold. I haven't been back in Ireland in 10 years. My brothers are both now grandfathers. And my sisters are in 2 different countries. My childhood friends, 5 of them have died in the last 6 years of my lifetime, and so on. I talk about who I am today. And then I compare that to the 12-year-old child who suffered the trauma. The 12-year-old child lived in the family home in Ireland. He lived with his parents who were alive. His grandparents were alive. All his aunts and uncles were alive. All his 5 siblings were alive, and the 5 friends in school who died were all alive at that time. He had his own room in the family home. He went to the local school. He's not married. He's not living in Thailand. He doesn't have children. So we can see they're 2 different people. So if they're 2 different people, I can't say I was abused at the age of 12 because I'm a 64-year-old man today, a husband and father today. So I can't be a 12-year-old child who was abused at age 12 if I'm a 64-year-old man today. So I have to realize I carry the memory of what happened to a 12-year-old child, and I carry sympathy pains for him as a show of support and solidarity for what he went through. But he went through it, not I. It's humanly impossible to heal the pain of another, no matter how much you care for that person, even if that person is your younger self or your inner child. It happened to them. It didn't happen to you or I. So we have to give the baggage of the past back to its rightful owner, that younger self. And that's a 3-hour process. We're making a decision to be our own therapist, to have a spiritual, holistic practice whereby we give the baggage we're carrying in our body over to our younger self. He takes it from us and he basically says, Richard, I've been trying to get your attention for the last 50 years. I want to go and leave this plane of existence and step into the light, but I can't go until I have all my baggage. Please give me back all my crap. And I have this visualization where I see him waiting there and I give it to him. I see a crowd of angels taking it from me and giving it to him, and he steps into the light. And in that moment, all the baggage leaves me. Now, I always carry the memory of what happened to my younger self. That's a part of being a human being. We have all our memories. The details will be gone. So I can't now say I was abused at 12 because I can't remember the actual experience of it. I don't remember if the child wet his pants or if he peed in his pants or with the smell of the pee or what it felt like on his skin or the fear felt like, was he perspiring or what the touch felt like. If I've given the baggage away, I can't experience the trauma. Now I'm just talking about a memory. And I've had so many memories in 64 years, I can't allow a memory to rule and define me. So the healing event takes 2 hours to give the past back to your younger self. And then the second part is a 1-hour introduction to the 12-step program of Trauma Recovery Anonymous. Because of my experience, I was a member of AA and some other 12-step programs. I love the idea of a 12-step program. It's really phenomenal where you teach the person to clean their side of the street. Even if they were a victim of the past, we can only clean our side of the street. I can't change you, Sana, but I can change me so my attitude and my relationship with you will be improved or disimproved, but I can only change my attitude to you. So the second part is to do the 12 steps of Trauma Recovery Anonymous. So I wrote a 12-step program and I contacted the AA World Service, asked for their permission to have this registered as a 12-step program. And I was told this would take 2 or 3 months for it to be cleared. And about 3 days later, I got an email from AA World Service New York saying, this is a fantastic program. Yes, please go ahead and create it. And so there's a 12-step program for Trauma and Recovery Anonymous created at that time. And so I take my clients through those 12 steps, and they're very simple. The first step is, and this is really important, what happened in the past didn't happen to that child, and it didn't happen to me. The person who acted out was acting out for their own benefit. And I wasn't the victim. I wasn't in the wrong place. I was collateral damage. They were acting out. They would have acted out with anybody. So it happened to be I was there and they invaded my space. I wasn't in the wrong place. It wasn't my fault. I was collateral damage. When we can remove the sense of victimhood from our lives, everything changes. And then today, Sana, if you decide this isn't for you and you cancel this interview, you didn't cancel me. You just chose for yourself, for your podcast, this wouldn't suit. But I wasn't the victim of you canceling it. You were making a decision for you. If my wife wants a divorce, it's not about she's divorcing me. She's making a decision that she wants to be with somebody who will cherish her better than I'm cherishing her. It's not about me. It's about her looking for something for her own needs. And if I can go through life seeing myself as not as a victim, but people do things for their own benefit, not about me, everything changes. And then the second step is to understand that we're never alone. Like that man in the airport or walking the dog, there's always someone I can turn to, someone I can talk to. Come on to your podcast and listen to your guest speakers and learn something. Go on to YouTube or Spotify and listen to speakers. Go on to social media and listen to join a support group. There's so much help out there that I can tap into. And then the third step is accepting there is a God, accepting that if I give him all my crap today, he'll take it off me for 5 minutes or for 24 hours. I just decide how long I'm going to give it to him. And then when I give it to him, let go of it. It's that simple. I'll get peace of mind. And that would be a miracle. I remember thinking, if someone could give me peace of mind for 5 minutes, that would be a miracle. And I learned how to give my troubles to God for up to 24 hours. So at nighttime, I say, okay, God, here's all of the past and all of the crap today. Take it from me and give me 8 hours of peaceful sleep. There's a certain a prayer I created that I would say and give it to God. And I take the page I wrote it out on and I burn it and flush it down the toilet as a burnt offering to God. I get into bed and I sleep for 8 hours. No nightmares, no flashbacks, no voices. I'd have this wonderful 8 hours sleep. And I'm thinking, if God can give me 8 hours at nighttime, well, then he can give me 5 minutes here. He can give me an hour to be with Sana, so it doesn't sound crazy. He can give me an hour when I go on a date or an interview. And suddenly I can claim an hour here and an hour there. I don't have to join any religion. I can just say, okay, God, take my rubbish for the next 10 minutes, 40 minutes, hour, 8 hours. And that's one of the practices I share in that book, How to Live Stress and Anxiety Free 24 Hours a Day.
That's quite comprehensive, very comprehensive. And before we wrap up, I think our listeners, they may have this thought in their mind that let's around emotions, like framing them purely as God-given instincts, it kind of risks minimizing the very real struggles of people with severe mood disorders or trauma. So how do you ensure that your approach doesn't dismiss their lived pain?
Well, unfortunately, you need to dismiss the concept of mood disorder. The problem is, if you've been conditioned into believing that your feelings and emotions are a mood disorder, it's going to be much harder for you to get to grips with this, because you've been told that your feelings are mood disorders. And if you've bought into all that and you've been medicating yourself for years and going to therapy for years, me saying to you, trust your feelings, can be like a red rag to a bull. It's like, is this guy insane? I've been suffering with depressive disorder for 20 years, and this guy's saying to me, trust my depression? Is that insane? But the truth is, depression is a feeling. It's not a mental behavior. So it's not a mental disorder, it's an emotional disorder. And if it's an emotional disorder, it's to do with your soul. And that's, again, you can only see this. I can tell you this, but unless you can see it yourself, you'll never get the understanding of this. Our feelings and emotions are connected to our soul. They then in turn. So if you have a feeling, so let's say you're feeling about yourself, which is all about your soul. You feel confident in yourself. When you feel confident in yourself, then you'll start feeling good about yourself. When you start feeling good about yourself, you start taking better action. You'll start thinking better about yourself. That'll lead you to take better action about yourself. Okay? If you think poorly about yourself, I'm broken, I'm no good, you'll start feeling negative thoughts, depression, anxiety, whatever. That'll lead you to thinking depressive, dysfunctional behaviors, self-harming, addiction, narcissism, whatever it is. You'll go to a dark place of dysfunctional behaviors and habits, and that'll lead to other behaviors. But if you can step back and say, right, I have a choice right now. Let's say one of your audience has been diagnosed with mental disorder for 15 years. Okay. They've been in the system for 15 years. They've been through 20 different therapists. They've been on untold number of medications and untold number of therapies. In this moment, I want you just to smile. Don't think about it. Don't think of all the reasons why you can't smile. Simply smile. As you smile, let the smile cross over your whole of your face. Feel the smile touch your eyes. Let all those lines in your forehead disappear. Feel your eyes soften, your eyes drop deep into your eye sockets. Feel your cheekbones relaxing. Feel your smile spreading across your cheeks. Breathe into your nose only. When we breathe into our mouths, we aggravate anxiety and panic in our shoulders about the unknown future, and stress, depression, and despair in our shoulders, like carrying the weight of the past on our back. So what you need to do is breathe into our nose, and that breath bypasses our chest and area, flows down to our tummy. So breathe in gently into your nose, a nice, soft, gentle breath. Hold it for a moment and exhale, and do that through your smile. So breathe into your smile and exhale through your smile. And do that for 2 or 3 minutes, only for 3 minutes, and you'll notice your depression will leave you for those 3 minutes. It'll just happen. Once you smile, your whole countenance changes. It doesn't matter that you don't want to smile. You've got no reason to smile. Allow yourself to smile for 3 minutes, and then understand if you do that 20 times, you have an hour. So it's not about a therapist fixing you or me fixing you. We all have the ability within ourselves to fix ourselves for even 3 minutes at a time. Another thing I'd like to suggest to you is that meditation and faith. So we are all experts at meditation and faith. We don't realize it. So you know that if you walk into a bedroom and the light's off and it's dark, you can throw a switch and the light comes on. That's faith that the light will come on when you throw the switch. You have so much faith in your little finger. It's amazing. You've got faith that if you're going to open the front door and you put your key in there and you turn the lock will open. That's faith. It's blind faith. We don't realize we have it. We do things not realizing. If I put out the drawer for a knife or fork, I know in my mind, I open the gate, there's going to be knives and forks in that drawer. That's blind faith. So to think you don't have faith is one of the most underrated falsehoods that are been given to people. We have an abundance of faith. And we have beliefs. We have abundant belief. We just believe in different things, but we have the capability to believe in anything. And then the idea of meditation is, again, smile for 3 minutes. Smile for 3 minutes. Let the smile course over your whole body. Open your lips wide. Look like a grinning Cheshire cat. Look like a crazy person. Open your eyes nice and wide. Big smile. And keep that smile for 3 minutes, breathing into your nose. Breathe in down to your tummy. Feel your breath touching the core of your being behind your sex organs. Let it touch that and then release all your demons on your out-breath, all your depression on your out-breath, and smile. Just keep smiling. And eventually you will feel the smile spreading across your face and touching your shoulders, your chest. You'll just feel the sensation. Your hands will be less grippy. Your feet will be more relaxed, your arm. And you can do this for 3 minutes, for 6 minutes, for 9 minutes, for an hour. Just breathe and smile, and you've completed the meditation. Don't think it has to be about God or something else. Just breathe and smile. So you're asking for peace from your depression for 3 minutes. That's all you're doing. So just breathe and smile for 3 minutes and kind of go, that was nice. I like being away from my depression for 3 minutes. I can do that anytime. That's really cool. I can do it when I'm driving the car. I can do that when I'm walking to work. I can do that when I'm washing the dishes. 3 minutes just smiling and breathing. Yeah, I can do that. No one's looking. No one can judge me or ridicule me or tease me. I can do it in the privacy of my own bedroom. I can do it in front of the PC when no one's looking. Just smile. And if I have to smile on the inside when I'm in public, people look like I've got a frown on my face, and inside I'm smiling, big wide smile inside, breathing into my nose. And you certainly learn these they're little baby steps for people who've been conditioned for years to believe that they have a mental disorder, they have a mood disorder. It's much harder for you guys to find your way back than it is for someone who's just starting out. But understand that your emotion is not a mental disorder because it's an emotion. An emotion can't be a mental disorder. It has to be emotion first. And to heal emotion, you must heal the hole in your soul. So in most cases, something happened in our past. For me, it happened to a 12-year-old child 50 years ago. And I have to make peace and let that go. And forgiveness and forgetfulness and all that I've got to embrace. And then gratitude for that having happened, because I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't experienced what I experienced. And all that comes into it, but you have to learn how to do that. So I've created a program called Trauma Recovery Anonymous. And the healing event is called Healing Any Trauma Memory. There are 2 books available on every platform possible. And you do these 2 books. The first book is the healing event. And it's great if you have someone to read it to you and you do the actions as they read it to you. It's much more powerful than trying to do it for your own. You can contact me directly on my email address, appointments@Trauma Recovery Anonymous, and I'll take you through the process. You have the book, you read the book out, we'll go the whole through the process together. then the 12-step program together. And I'll take you to the 12 steps in 1 day and 12 days. And you get to a place where you'll break free of the past completely, or you do it with your sponsor or your therapist or a family member or a friend. Ask them, would they take you through this process? But the past didn't happen to you. It's none of your business. And you want to be free of it. You must give it back to your younger self. And once you do give it back to your younger self and you get free of that hopelessness, you find the mood disorder will disappear.
I think, Richard, that's liberating. It's empowering. It doesn't make us feel helpless at all. Though it could be difficult, it could be easy. I mean, it's all different for every one of us. But I think the idea that our emotions are not signs of brokenness, but they are divine instincts. It definitely asks us to rethink what healing really means. Thank you so much for putting this into limelight, sharing your experiences, and of course about your three-step program with the idea that emotions are divine instincts, the 12-step program, and then the kind of faith can provide us that support, the hope. It's kind of the food for our souls. So thank you once again. And I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes, as I always do for our listeners. And yeah, thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you very much. Really a pleasure being here. Thank you
Yeah.
very much for having me back.
So, to all the listeners out there, healing, as we have heard, it can take many forms, and maybe, just maybe, it doesn't have to take a lifetime. So, thank you so much, listeners, for joining us on this episode of The Mindful Journey. Until next time, may you trust your instincts, release what isn't yours to carry, and walk gently with yourself. Thank you.